Hello, everyone, and good morning. I'm Alex Grynkewich, the Director of Operations here at United States Central Command in Tampa, Florida. And on behalf of my boss, General Frank McKenzie, I'd like to welcome you to day 2 of this exceptional conference. I'm extremely sorry that my schedule didn't allow me to attend in person, but I do appreciate the opportunity to pre-record these remarks. I do trust, like me, you're impressed by the very high caliber of speakers that this conference has gathered together and that it's attracted. I deeply appreciate everyone who's taken the time out of their busy schedules to address and attend the conference. Hopefully it's been well worth your time. It's a testament to this conference's growing importance, as well as to the University of South Florida's status, once again, as being the fastest rising university in America. Very, very impressive. I'm also honored to join USF President Steve Corral in welcoming you this morning. And I do want to thank him and his fantastic team for hosting this event. I also want to extend my appreciation to Vice Admiral McConnell and his team at Cyber Florida for their hard work in making this conference such a resounding success. So thanks to you and congratulations. So here at U.S. Central Command, as the Director of Operations, I'm responsible for planning, organizing, directing, and controlling joint and combined military operations in the Central Region at the direction of the Commander. As you can imagine, it's a pretty busy job, but I'm fortunate to have the help of some of the military's best and brightest young men and women in uniform, as well as dedicated and experienced civilians and contractors who help us get the mission done every single day. And that simple phrase, "get it done," relies upon a lot that we don't think of typically. First off, it relies upon myriad discrete activities that come together in time, in space, in place, and purpose, in order to accomplish our commander's objectives. It also relies on what we like to call, and what we do call, defense critical infrastructure, meaning the many life support, command and control, transportation, logistics, and other physical and non-physical systems that we need in order to deploy forces into the theater, accomplish the mission, and return safely home. Without that infrastructure, that backbone, if you will, we simply could not do our job. As cybersecurity professionals, you understand only too well that infrastructure is under attack every day from our adversaries, from cyber criminals, from common hackers who might be testing their skills, from a host of different threats that are out there. Just take the cyber attack on the water treatment facility just a few miles north of here at Oldsmar back in February, for example. I'm not going to get into all the details and technical aspects of the hack, but I will point out that the attacker accessed the plant's SCADA controls via remote access software installed on the plant's computers, all of which were still running Windows 7 and which shared the same password for remote access and which were connected to the internet directly without any type of firewall protection. I don't want to make light of the situation, but we've known about cyber attacks for decades. We've known about these vulnerabilities of our defense industrial control system, or our industrial control systems and critical infrastructure for years now. We've just got to do better. That's why I'm particularly grateful that we have outstanding cybersecurity professionals that help us protect pieces of defense critical infrastructure that CENTCOM and our subordinate commands rely on every single day. Thanks to those professionals assigned here at CENTCOM in our J6, which is shorthand for our Command and Control Communications and Computers Directorate, under the very able leadership of Brigadier General Jeff Ray, our forces have confidence that if the call ever comes, our critical infrastructure will be there, ready, and operational. Now, of course, CENTCOM doesn't operate alone. We train and fight as a coalition in many countries, and with many of those countries in the coalition, they bring strength and diversity to our warfighting. But some of them also bring vulnerabilities. One area of concern we have when dealing with our regional partners is the level of security, their information networks, and their critical infrastructure. Some are very well versed in cybersecurity and do a terrific job securing their networks. Others are still in the early stages of their cybersecurity programs and are working hard to enhance the security of their networks. To assist in this effort, folks from our J6 Directorate work alongside our partners to find feasible and appropriate system solutions to meet current and future networking and security requirements. Their initiatives provide depth and redundancy of on-net capabilities. That in turn helps secure our critical infrastructure, which of course in turn gives me, as the Director of Operations, the ability to generate more options, more combat power for our commander. Another way we're creating operational and strategic depth in theater is through what we're calling the Western Basing Network. This newly created support and sustainment network is designed to operate outside the range of Iran's ballistic missile force, and this mitigates the potential impact of choke point closures at the Bab el-Mandeb and the Strait of Hormuz as well. Think back to what happened at the Suez Canal just a few weeks ago, but on a much larger scale. To avoid the kind of situation that such a shutdown would have, we've taken a number of steps in the past few years to build sustainment depth. We've increased military traffic across the Arabian Peninsula, shipped ammunition to Kuwait from the Red Sea, negotiated movement of materiel and supplies across the borders that were affected by the previous Gulf Rift, and we've developed out the port in Duqm in Oman. Developing this operational depth enhances the protection of critical infrastructure and provides reduced cost options that allow us to deploy. This obviates the need to transit potentially contested maritime choke points, and in short, just reduces risk by providing additional sustainment options for our forces in the theater. As I said a few moments ago, CENTCOM is moving sustainment capabilities out of the range of Iran's ballistic missiles. I just want to point out it's important to note that this is not just out of the range of the missiles of today, but of Iran's future military capabilities as well. Which brings me to the overarching theme of this conference, which is, of course, great power competition. And primarily that plays out between and amongst the United States, Russia, and China, of course, to a lesser extent with both Iran and North Korea. This is the third in a series of conferences broadly focused on great power competition, a competition that is happening right now in the U.S. Central Command area of responsibility. As such, I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about two recent examples of how this competition dynamic is playing out in the region and how each represents some of the ways in which the growing influence of Russia and China in the Middle East will, if left unchecked, complicate the ability of CENTCOM and other U.S. and coalition forces to operate in the region. The first example I'll offer involves recent exercises conducted in the Indian Ocean by the combined naval forces of Iran, Russia, and China. I've been an operator my entire military career, and I can tell you that one of the most challenging tasks is to coordinate military operations with other countries. Interoperability, the ability to work together, systems to talk to each other, is the coin of the realm, so to speak. So it's troubling to me to learn that Iran's Navy, which, let's be frank, has a lot to learn, they could get a huge push forward thanks to the effort of our main competitors, Russia and China. Our Fifth Fleet, headquartered in Bahrain, is second to none, but I would hate to see their job made more difficult by an Iranian Navy more capable, more agile, and more lethal, thanks to contributions from Russia and China. The second example will perhaps be of greater interest to this conference, and that is the cyber agreement signed in late January between Iran and Russia. This new agreement has been called, and I quote, a milestone in the cybersecurity programs between Iran and Russia. Now, Iran has a pretty capable cyber force already, but they're nowhere near Russia in terms of technical capability and expertise. By now, you're all familiar with SolarWinds, the sophisticated malware campaign that was recently attributed to Russian intelligence. That operation has affected local, state, and federal agencies in the U.S., as well as a number of private companies, and the investigation of its full impact is still ongoing. Suffice it to say, SolarWinds was a wake-up call, and we are working diligently with our interagency partners to ensure it doesn't happen again. Still, I'm concerned that other adversaries, and Iran in particular, are studying it carefully and learning important lessons not only about how SolarWinds was executed, but also how it was detected and how it was attributed. Now, do I think Russia is going to hand over to Iran all of their most sophisticated hacking tools? No, and for obvious reasons. But I am concerned that an Iran empowered just enough by Russia and China could pose an even greater threat to our critical infrastructure here at home and in the theater. And let me be clear, we will defend our infrastructure first. That is our responsibility to the American people, and we're working diligently to build even better and more sophisticated sensor and intrusion detection systems, as well as better tools to hasten and sharpen our attribution capabilities. But we also recognize that a vulnerability amongst one of our partners is a vulnerability to us all. And so we're continuing to help them also build their capacity to defend their own networks and their industrial control systems against cyber attack. Unfortunately, right now the advantage goes to the offense. But I truly believe that by the time one of the young majors who works for me now is in my chair as a major general, the defense will have caught up. I hope I'm right. So before I close, and without stealing too much thunder from my boss, I would like to briefly touch upon two ongoing changes to the U.S. Central Command area of responsibility. I'm sure by now you've all heard of the decision to transfer Israel from the U.S. European Command area of operations into U.S. Central Command. That move, along with the restoration of diplomatic relations between several Arab nations and Israel, is the very visible acknowledgement of a truth that we at CENTCOM have known for a long time. The nations of our region consider Iran, and not Israel, the real threat to peace and stability in the region. Iran remains the command's #1 priority, and we are grateful to have another very capable partner to work with as we deter Iranian aggression together. As General McKenzie told Israeli Defense Minister Gantz back in January when they met in Tel Aviv, the movement of Israel to CENTCOM is a sign of the importance of a close collaboration and coordination between the U.S. and Israeli militaries, and to the shared interests of our two countries in achieving regional and even global stability. The second change I'd like to cover is our growing partnership with our traditional allies to provide deterrent capabilities here in the central region. Especially as the U.S. national focus continues to shift to other parts of the world, the contributions of those allies become ever more important. We're coordinating more closely than ever with our British and French counterparts to ensure aircraft carrier strike groups and other deterrent capabilities are on station in the Gulf and neighboring waters to ensure freedom of navigation, to fight terrorism, to conduct surveillance and reconnaissance, defend commerce, and to deter aggression. In fact, on the 31st of March, the French Navy carrier strike group Charles de Gaulle assumed command of U.S. Fifth Fleet's Task Force 50 in the Gulf in support of military operations in the region. The capabilities these assets bring are tremendous, and I thank our allies for continuing their invaluable contributions to regional security. I'll close just by thanking each of our very distinguished speakers and panelists, everyone who attended in person, and the very many people who are watching and contributing virtually. I'm looking forward to today's program, and I'm sure it will prove extremely valuable. Thank you for your kind attention.